You want to get booked, you want to get paid, you want to be the expert, you want to be the go-to person in your space. You want to make sure that you are truly maximizing every opportunity when you're speaking, when you have the inquiries, right? You want to make sure that people find you and therefore able to book you, know what you're getting booked for, know why they're booking you, and everything to do with that, right? Here's where people fall down, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So make sure you tune in, you buckle up, you get a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and listen in. Because I'm going to talk about the pitfalls that people fall into and why you're probably not getting the booking you want, the fee you want, the positioning you want, being seen as the expert you want. Because a lot of people get certain things wrong, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is how you ask for a fee. The first thing you need to do when asking for a fee is literally ask for your fee and hush your mouth. Don't justify, don't do anything. Now, if your fee is too low, then you blend into all those really cheap speakers. If your fee is too high, well, at least people really think about paying you. There's something that happens here when it comes to fees. But what happens is generally for a lot of people when it comes to fees is they freeze up, right? Who am I to charge that? How much should I charge? What could I charge? All this stuff goes through your head. It brings up a lot of people's insecurity, a lot of people's self-worth and things like that. But let me ask you this. How long have you worked on being an expert? How long have you dedicated to your expertise? How long have you given your profession, your career, your industry? The chances are you've invested a lot of money. The chances are you've invested a lot of time to become the expert. Now, remember that your expertise is also your differentiator, right? It's what gets you to stand out. It's what gets you to be different. So by using your expertise as a positioner and using your price point to stand out from the rest, you're more likely to get it. But you've got to be bold and comfortable with asking for your worth. Now, if you're not asking for £3,500 or dollars minimum, you're really underselling yourself, okay? So I really want you to think when it comes to your fee, what value you bring to the table. This is so important because, again, a lot of speakers simply blend into the cheapness of speaking versus standing out because of their expertise and the fee they can charge, right? The other thing I want you to think of is this. Are you positioned rightly, right? Are you positioned rightly? So if the bookers, the event organizers, the conference organizers don't get what it is you do and the packaging around it, then it's very hard to box you in. It's very hard to truly place you somewhere. They have to guess, they have to think, and they really don't like doing that. The truth is, a lot of other speakers are already doing it. So it's a lot easier to go to the speakers who have packaged themselves in the right way, who've positioned themselves in the right way in order to get booked and get paid. So really think about this. Is your packaging, you as a speaker, showing you off in the right way? Do people get what you do in 1 or 2 sentences? Can they land on your page and go, oh yes, I know exactly why I'm booking that person on your website or on your LinkedIn? Because if that's not happening, you're leaving money on the table, right? So I want you to understand that. Other speakers winning the business because you're not positioned right. So have a look at your positioning, have a look at your packaging. People are time poor, they move on. If you don't have the basics, they move on. If you're not standing out, they move on. If they can't box you in, they move on. So be aware of that, please. The other thing is this. How much time are you really investing in getting speaking gigs? Are you sitting there waiting for someone to come and rescue you and knock on your door and go, hey, here's 1,000 gigs for the next year? Not going to happen, right? If you're not spending a minimum of an hour a day, what we would call gig getting, right? Going out for the gig, proactively sitting there, reaching out, talking to event organizers, building relationships, then again, you're leaving money on the table because sure, if you're like a huge name, they'll come knocking, but till then, you're the one that needs to do the knocking, right? You are the one that needs to do the knocking. So put an hour a day, sit there and go hunting, hunt for the gigs, build relationships, reach out to people, start to nurture them. And if you're not doing that, you're going to get left behind. Again, this is some of the reasons why people aren't getting booked, aren't getting paid, because they don't spend the hour a day, right, reaching out. So that's the third thing I want to talk about, proactively reaching out. The fourth thing I want to talk about is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a beautiful, amazing, and powerful tool when it comes to getting speaking gigs. Very, very few people use it effectively. Very few people use it properly. So the question I'm going to ask you is very similar to your packaging. Does LinkedIn show you off to be a professional paid speaker? Does LinkedIn promote you in a way that exhibits your expertise? Because again, if the answer is no, then you're going to be left behind. You are leaving money on the table. So does your LinkedIn give you the exposure you need it to give you? And if the answer is no, you're leaving money on the table. All right. As well as LinkedIn, as well as gig hunting, the key question is, do you know where to get speaking gigs, right? That's really important. So LinkedIn is a shop front window. Of course, you can find them on Facebook. You can find them on various websites, on the internet, but are you proactively creating a database of where to find speaking gigs? When it comes down to the nurturing, when it comes down to building relationships, you know who to turn to if you need a speaking gig. Is there someone you can call and go, hey, I'd like a speaking gig? If the answer is no, you know what to do, right? Because this is key to you getting paid, booked, and be seen as the expert. The next one is follow-up. Follow-up is such an important part of this process. And if you're not following up, you're leaving money on the table and other people are getting booked. Here's what's really important with a follow-up, right? Let's say you do the hour a day and you're doing all the outreach and someone responds and you're going, oh, I'll do it later. No, do it now, because people react to the speed of action. Now, if you're someone that's truly on it, you would react straight away. You'd go, yeah, sure, let's talk. Yeah, here's my fee. Yeah, here's my show reel. Here's my blah. But what a lot of people do is they don't follow up at all and they don't circle back because the other person hasn't got back in touch with them or hasn't responded. They don't follow up again. What you need to do is understand this. You're going to get 4 no's before a yes. You're going to get 4 probably pieces of contact before someone takes notice. So if you're doing 1 or twice, 50% of your opportunity is gone because you're not doing it. Well, actually 100% of your opportunity is gone because you're not doing it, but you're missing out 50% of the process. Therefore, you only get a tiny result of that, right? So follow-up is essential. Now, I want to circle back to your fee. Okay, now I know I talked about fee at the beginning, or I've talked about fee in other videos, but here's the thing I want to talk about. If you're not commanding a high fee, then you are literally blending in. You are becoming, you know, what we call low-hanging fruit, what you would call like low-tier speaker, as in you're the speaker they'll turn to if they don't have the budget for someone really good, right? You're the speaker that will do. You're the speaker that would work. You're the speaker that's okay. Now, if you want to be world-class and you want to really make this into a profitable business, I really urge you to think about commanding a high fee. You've got to command a high fee. Now, of course, it has to be relevant to the industry, but generally speaking, most people will find the budget if they see the value. Now, if you're not getting the fee you want, then maybe they're not seeing the value. Maybe your packaging isn't right. Maybe the content you're producing doesn't position you as the go-to person. Therefore, they can't see why they would pay you what they would pay you. But if you've done everything else right, and you've got that expertise, you charging a few thousand, right, is a given. Is a given. People won't even question it. Recently, I was working with someone and she literally started to ask to be paid to speak. And her question was, what's the budget? And then she told them what she's happy to charge, and they went, okay. And then they asked her, she asked them, what would you have paid? And they told her it was 3 times what you asked for. People have budgets, people have money. And if you're not commanding a high fee, it reflects on where you are in the journey. So even if you're starting out, I would certainly have the ambition of commanding a high fee. I think that's really important to keep that in mind as well. All right. We've covered a lot, haven't we? We've covered a lot so far. So here's what else I want to quickly talk about is your speaker toolkit. If your speaker toolkit again, isn't positioning you right, isn't showing off your best stuff, it isn't showing the potential booker that you are worth thousands of pounds or dollars, you need a better speaker toolkit. You've got to make sure your images matter. You've got to make sure your videos look expensive and look good. And more than anything, show you off. You've got to also understand that your bio needs to be up to date and sells you as a speaker. You need to understand that all of the above must happen all together, that your one pager looks good, reads good. Please don't use like a download template that looks cheap. If it looks cheap, you look cheap, right? If your video looks cheap, you look cheap. If your images look cheap, you look cheap. It's got to look good. Now, I'm not saying go spend millions, but invest in this because you're going to get a return. And unless you're seeing this as a commercial opportunity, when someone reads your bio, when someone looks at your images, when someone watches your videos, then you're leaving money on the table. So your speaker toolkit must show off your expertise and show you to be a high paid speaker, because otherwise, if all of that's not doing it, you're probably never going to get to the conversation phase where you can negotiate and charm them as charming as you are, right? So please keep all of the above in mind. You've got to really be comfortable and start charging a fee. You've got to ask for what you want. You've got to make sure that your LinkedIn position, that you're positioning yourself as a speaker is effective and it works. You need to make sure speaker toolkit is up to date. Everything has to show you off to be that highly paid speaker. Now, if we can help you do that, reach out. Let's talk, because I know we can make it happen. Till then, be seen, be heard, and always be more giraffe.